want to do is set up this presupposition that these were the best years of his life. And I didn't do that, so I can't just keep following in the timeline. So this is more of an outline which I would use if I were going to preach this passage. And I say that so no one has to catch me in the hallway and say, you were a little preachy. I know. I'm working on it. But the presupposition is these were the best years. And so that leads us to this question, how can we have the best years? And we use this idea in the changing seasons of our life. Because, our life's not a straight line. We go through lots of different seasons in life. And in whatever season we're in, how can it be the best season? And I think we can learn that from this look of Jacob's life. A few things we'll have to go over, but I think they're going to be brief, and then we'll get into some new stuff. Genesis chapter 46, and what we're going to see is we're going to see four things that can help us have the best season of life. The first is an upward look or a faith look at God. Genesis chapter 46 begins this way, and Israel took his journey with all that he had. Don't miss that because that makes it even tougher. He's bringing this baggage along, and there's a picture there that we're not going to look at, but he brought all that old baggage, even though he was told you don't have to bring anything, you can leave it. I'll take care of everything. Israel took his journey with all that he had, and he came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. And we spent some time, so I'm not going to do a whole lot, but it is important that we understand that in the midst of this, this is great. This is great change. He's dead, he's gone, life is over, I'm waiting to die. And what does he hear? The beloved son is alive. You would think that changes everything, and it changes everything with a smile and energy. And Brother Maddox, I just can't wait to see him, and life is going to be different. We're going to see it changes some things, but it didn't bring about that excitement and encouragement and longing. In fact, when he sees him, he says, now I've seen you, I can die. So, but at this point, Jacob goes to Beersheba, and that should be obvious. It should be obvious to us. And Doc, it should be easy. If we got great change, and there's fear, and we know there's fear because the first thing he says is, don't fear. So if we're in a picture of life, and we're just unsure, and we're nervous, and first thing we should do, right? It's obvious. We should just go talk to God. But I'm going to tell you, sometimes that just seems like the hardest thing to do. And we spent a lot of time talking about the fact that he did go. But I've lived life long enough and talked to enough people to know that sometimes we just want to hold on to the fear. Doc, all we want to do is talk about it. You have the same counseling session with the same person 30 times. They say the same thing. All you can do is bring them to the same place. And the same place is, but God, but God, but God, but God. But here in this case, he doesn't want to hold on. And what happens is we want to hold on to the fear. We want to see nothing but the impossible. We continue to live in the depression. Don't tell me how to make anything better, which always is going to be go to God. Just listen to me complain about how impossible it is, how miserable it is, how painful it is, how tough it is. But the difference is he goes to Beersheba. He goes to God. Now, I'm going to say something else. Sometimes, Lorraine, we don't hold on. What we do is we find other places to go. We go to sister. Or we go to dad. Or we go to Sunday school teacher. I would love that so much. We go to the preacher. Justin, all those things are good. I don't have in the multitude of counselors, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes we do that as a replacement. And we just keep going to people, person after person after person, and we never go to Beersheba. We never go to worship. We never go to seek. We just keep ourselves busy going around in the multitude of counselors. 2 verses we looked at last week. Oh, I'll say this too. Brother Maddox, I'm sure you know this. But, like when my boys come to me, I have to be very careful because I love them. You know what I want to do? I want to take away the pain. I want to take away the problem. I want to make the situation better. But God sent it for a reason. He sent it because he wants them to go to Beersheba. And this is just, I've grown up in the time of Christian schools. So let me tell you one of the dangers I've seen in Christian schools. Okay? One of the dangers for us parents who send their kids to Christian schools. Doug, let me let you know something. Christian schools are not perfect. Sometimes the teachers actually mistreat a student. Sometimes a principal might not handle everything exactly perfect. Now, you know what would happen if this wasn't in a Christian school? I would teach my child how to deal with that. And they would grow. But in a Christian school, you know what I usually do? I go and teach that teacher how to deal with it. I teach that principal how to deal with it. And then we wonder why we have 20-year-old, 12-year-olds. Because all the situations that went through their life to help them grow, I protected them from. Anyway, so we have to be careful. We have to be careful when you go to sister, or when you go to, if you're sister, or if you're dad, or if you're a Sunday school teacher. You have to be careful not to try to take away that pain. Here's the answer. Go to Beersheba. Here's the answer. Go worship God. Because if you seek me, you will find me. Here's the, if you seek me with the whole heart. Which, by the way, is Old Testament and New Testament. So, we get this picture last week because he does exactly that. Verse 2 is the result of that. And God spake unto Israel. Wonderful passage. We're reading from the Bible, and we just read by that. So he goes to Beersheba, God speaks, and we just keep on going. Well, you got to slow down right here. That's important. That's the exact answer. If you, then I will. And this is what happens. It's also very important because we think this was the natural thing for Jacob. This is really easy. Jacob hadn't had this situation with God in over 20 years. We don't have this picture until you go all the way back to Rachel's death. For 20 years, he's been living life like this, Because Christians, we can do that. What do you mean like this? Well, I mean, it's not like this. He's definitely not seeing life through the mirror of heaven. He's going to reveal that here in a little bit. He's seeing life through what he wants and how it's supposed to be, and all of his pain and all of his challenges and all of his loss and all of the evil that has come into his life. But God speaks to Jacob. He took all he went, all he had. He went seeking. He went worshiping. He said, I need God, and God speaks to him. And what he does is he strengthens him. And how does he do it? By revealing his own character. He says three things. He says, and God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here am I. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. I'm the same God. You know the God who took care of your granddad and your dad? I'm that God. And to us, Brother Ivy, it would be the same. You know who he is? This is what when you go through those situations in life, when you go through those seasons in life, let me tell you who he is. He's the same God of Abraham, the same God of Isaac, and we're going to learn the same God of Jacob. And he's going to take care of us just the same. It didn't change. He's still the same. So he starts by saying, I am the same God. I'm the same God who protected them. And then he goes on, and he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not, go down to Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. Now, that there right there is a key word, because nobody expected them to grow into a great nation in Egypt. They were supposed to grow into a great nation in the land of Canaan. This was supposed to happen here, but God had different plans. And so we see he's the same God, but he's also the God who keeps his promises. In Genesis chapter 12, he says, I'm going to make a great nation, and this nation, thou shalt be a blessing to all the other nations. Here's the reason. I'm going to make of thee a great nation because you're going to bless all the nations. Through you, I'm going to bless everyone. That was the purpose. Then he goes in Genesis 15, and he talks about, and they learn about the 400 years of slavery. It's foretold. And then we have this here. I'm going to carry out my... Jacob, don't be afraid to go down there. because I'm going to carry out my promise. I'm going to make of thee a great nation. In fact, let me tell you something. I'm going to make of thee a great nation there. This is going to happen in Egypt. Newsflash. And it does. If we go to Numbers chapter 1, and we threw this out last week, go to Numbers chapter 1, you're going to find out that there were over 600,000 men, minus the Levites, who left in the Exodus. Numbers 1:46. And out of that number, that's where you always hear it was roughly 2 million people. Because you got 603,000 men, minus Levites, plus wives, plus children, roughly 2 million people. So what we need to know in turbulent times is that God always the same. God always keeps his promise. And then he says, God is always with us. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt. I'm going to be there. I will be with you every single step of the way. I'll never leave you, nor forsake you. Again, Hebrews, Deuteronomy. I'm going to be there. Every step you take, I'm going to take that step. Don't be afraid. Go down there. I'll be with you. Then he gets this remarkable saying, I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will surely bring thee up again. Now, he dies in Egypt. So what are we talking about here? Well, I'm going to say, Brother Ivy, I'm going to let you know, I differ with a lot of the commentaries right there. Not that I'm very smart, which is why I throw that out there. Because you can differ with me. Okay, they're going to go right here and they're going to say, well, this is when you die, they're going to take you up and they're going to take you back to Canaan. I don't believe that. Because if that's what it was, this would be in the reverse order. It would be, Joseph is going to cover your eyes and then I'll bring you up again. This is, I'm going to bring you up and then Joseph will cover your eyes. Which is what you do after a person passes. This is not after you die, you'll come back to Canaan and I'll bury you. This is, Jacob, I know you're afraid. I know the challenges you're going to. Let me help you out. Let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to go down to Egypt, and I'm going to go with you every step of the way. Whatever the challenges are, don't you worry about it. I'll be there. Don't you fear the unfamiliar. Don't you fear the unknown. I will be there. And when you're there, I'm going to bring this promise to pass. You will become a great nation. Understand this. Then, one day, I will call you up to be with me. And after that, Joseph will cover your eyes. See, I believe this is an Old Testament picture of to be absent from the body is to be present from the Lord. This is not how it happens, Brother Wayne. God's not in heaven and Wayne passes away and he says, oh, we need to go get him. It's the opposite. He says, go get Brother Wayne. And then we on earth catch up. Oh, time to cover his eyes. So what he's saying is, Jacob, what do you have to fear? Don't fear. In life, in death, in your eternity, I will always be with you. You are always with me. Now, this all started because you were afraid. For the Gonzalez, what do we have to fear with those three things? What is there to fear? Wherever you go, understand this, I'll be with you in every new experience. I will be with you in everything that you have to go to. Then the time will come that your son will cover your eyes. And then you'll be with me. What is there to fear? He strengthened him by giving him a picture of God's character. And most of that we got through last week. But not only do I think we need to look up with faith if we're going to have the most prosperous, fruitful season of our life, But the second thing is we need to learn to look back with gratitude and understanding. And we did not get this far. And this is why I changed it to try to put this in first. Look back with gratitude and understanding. Go back to Genesis 45, one verse. Genesis 45, verse 28. And Israel said, "It is enough." Meaning, okay, the wagons, the words, that's enough. It's enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. Now look at this wonderful, encouraging phrase. I will go and see him before I die. Let's go see him. Then it's all over. Then I'll die. That's his viewpoint here. Go to chapter 46, verse 28. So he goes to Beersheba, which, by the way, was not easy. But Max, remember, he ends that, okay, let's go. It's enough. We're going to go do it. Then he doesn't head towards Egypt. He heads towards Beersheba. There's 65 people going, what are we doing? He's leading that family, but the whole family's like, what are we doing? There. Joseph is there. Provision is there. Promise is there. Everything is there. What are we doing? This was probably not a real easy bypass. And it was definitely out of the ordinary of the way of life for him. But so this is all settled. Boom. Now he gets this picture. But I want you to see, through all of this, his attitude is still, Joseph is alive. No, Wayne, that should be, he's alive, he's alive, he's alive. No, but there's a sadness here. There's a holding on to loss and to pain. He doesn't know that he's going to get another 17 years. He's just stuck in misery. He is this picture we started with. He just wants to hold on to the misery. He's not going to say God's been unfair, but that's how he lives his life. 46, verse 28. So they get to Egypt. Joseph sends Judah out. Verse 28, and he sent Judah before him unto Joseph to direct his face to Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen. And Joseph made ready his chariot. So here you go. They're there. They arrive. I want you to tell you, Joseph is doing his part right here. Right. Joseph just can't wait to go see Dad. And Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father to Goshen, and presented himself unto him, and fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. Is not this exactly what you would expect? This is movie stuff right here. I have not seen Dad. I can't wait to see Dad. Let me get the best chariot, the fastest. I want him to see everything, see how God's blessed me, see the power, see the influence. Doug, I want him to see all. Puts himself in the chariot, takes off, gets there, can't handle it, wraps his arm around his neck and bawls. This is just how it's supposed to be, right? Okay. And Israel said unto Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. Brother Frazier, just like, don't you just want, really, Dad? Really? 20 years and that's the best you got? I've been waiting all this time and this is it? You're not going to die, Dad. Let's just talk about this. God's a big God. I mean, come on, you know, put yourself in the picture. I want you to tell you, he was very smart. Proverb after proverb tells us not to argue with the fool in his folly. There would be no winning the argument, the foolish argument. Life and death aren't in his hands. He didn't know he was going down there. He didn't know God was going to speak. He doesn't know anything. "47. 47, verse 7. Let's do this. And Joseph brought in Jacob, his father, and sent him before Pharaoh. He coaches him up on this a little bit. He says, guys, you guys are going to have to go meet Pharaoh. When you do, we got these positions open. We need some shepherds. So when he tells you what you're doing, you're going to be shepherds. I mean, he coaches them up like any of us would. And Joseph brought in Jacob, his father, and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. That's a big statement right there. We're going to look at it in the end. How did this guy who had nothing, full of regret, bless the guy who seems to has everything? Because we won't get there. Let me go ahead and jump to the end. You know why? Because only one of them knew God. Doesn't matter where we are in our life, what we're struggling with, what frustration, anger, depression, fear. We have something that we can always offer because we are the ones who know God. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, how old art thou? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days, I want you to hear this. Brother Maddox, you understand what's been going on in his life for the last month. He doesn't yet. And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my pilgrimage, which, by the way, is a good way to look at it. It's not about the years of our life. The decisions are made daily. The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. What? Can you be any more depressed? Jacob, nice to meet you. How old are you? I'm 130 years old. If you want one word for me to tell you what my life is about, my life's been evil. The days have just been terrible. If you compare me to my father and to my grandfather, I don't even count. You can't even measure me up. I'm just waiting to die. That's his first testimony. My days have all been sorrow. I'm waiting and looking forward to the grave. I wish it was different. But it's not. Evil, disappointment. He looks back in the beginning, and all there is regret. But after 17 years with the beloved son, we get a second testimony. Genesis 48, verse 15 and 16. Next week, we're going to spend our time here in 48. I just love this passage. I can't wait to get here. It was everything for me just not to jump ahead. And he blessed Joseph and said, look at this picture. It's a totally different picture. God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God, no, before it was just evil and evil and evil, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil. Now, he's the God who protected me. He protected me from what? Evil. Before, all I saw was evil and disappointment and depression and struggle and pain and lack and But after 17 years of spending time with the beloved son, he sees everything different. Now, he looks back with gratitude. You see, he has been my shepherd all along. When I look back, he protected me, he guided me, he provided for me. And what I want this same God who did all this for me, I want him to do it for you. So he looks up with faith. He looks back with gratitude. I'm going to do this quick. He looks forward with hope until we get to these last 17 years. There's no hope in anything he says. Here's his hope. And then I die, and then I die, and then I die, and then I die. I'm going to die. And Brother Maddox, God gives him comfort about his death because I think he was nervous about that too. Remember, don't be afraid? Well, in his answer to don't be afraid when you die either because I'm calling you up. There's just no hope in his life anywhere. So where does all this hope come from? Well, you could go back to chapter 45, and it comes from the beloved son, who in this narrative always represents Christ. And in chapter 45, verse 9, he says, you go tell him, you go bid him come. And then in verse 10, he says, not only does he come, but come near to me. Draw near to me. And then in 45, verse 11, so you got 9, 10, and 11. 9, come. 10, come near. 45, 11, come near, and I will provide. Where does this hope come from? Well, he comes. He draws near. He partakes of the provision. At first, he heard it. Rooch, at first he heard it, his mind just was a little numb. His heart grew cold. He just couldn't believe it. It's just like, okay, well, words and wagons, remember? He didn't even want to go. But then, once the blinders get peeled off and he begins to walk in the light just a little bit, now things are totally different. Now it's not nothing but evil in my life. Now he's protected me from all the evil in my life. He's provided for me. It's been his plan. In fact, I want him to do the same thing to you, my grandchildren that I love. Count. It's all on us. Brother Maddox, it's on us to trust him enough to go to Beersheba. Because there's lots of other places we could go. We can keep ourselves busy going everywhere else. To trust him enough to go there. To dwell with him. So I'll just throw this out there. Because when I draw these big pictures, I know there's somebody in here saying, well, I mean, that all sounds good, but that's not written in there. You're adding it. Well, if you go to Hebrews chapter 11, you know where it says, looked for a city whose builder and maker is God. Well, Abraham looked for a city whose builder and maker is God. You're right, Brother Jeremy. No, read that verse. It says Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There was a point, you know what Jacob did? He, from afar, looked and saw hope. Now, so that gives him upward look in faith, a backward look with gratitude, a forward look in hope. Three things that bring about this great season of life. But I'm going to tell you, here's the fourth. And, Brother Wayne, I got just a few minutes, but I'm going to tell you. Sometimes we struggle. We got to get beat up a lot. I can say we because, you and I were the same that way. We get beat up a lot. I know you get beat up a lot because you just like to tell me. I like to listen because then I don't feel like the only one. But we can go through those three. And I'll get to the place that I don't know how this happens, but I'll get to the place God beats some hope into me. And then I say thank you. But I'm going to tell you this fourth one is where we really struggle. It is. And it's why I can't wait to get into it next week. But because what happens, and Doc, you know this, you've way more counseling than I ever have or want to. Whenever you talk to anybody, this is where they focus. You know what all these things have in common? The phrase, all these things are about me. They're my viewpoint. I'll expand it. My home, my child, my work. I'll expand it so it's not just about me. But you know what they all have in common? They're all about me. And the fourth one, and I'm going to tell you, I can't say most important, but key. It doesn't happen without this. The fourth one is when we take a look at Jacob's life, what we see is an outward look of love. Where you get that? Well, what's he doing is he's blessing others. This is so important in our time, in our church time. I don't know, how do I say this? Matt, in fact, I need to say this to you. I am extremely encouraged. I will tell you this honest truth. I don't think you'll find anyone in the church who is happier that we have a young married class. Honest. I mean, this is a kid who was 9, 10 years old, reading marriage books, outlining the parts I thought were important, throwing them on the coffee table because I wanted my mom or dad to read them. Okay, so I've been reading that stuff since, when I'm supposed to read comic books. And there's nobody who is more excited. But I'll also tell you, there's a grave danger Because what happens is we begin to live our life inside this picture. You gotta be careful. We live our life inside this picture of her and I. We'll do it right. We'll make it all happen. And in this little, in between these walls, life will be fulfilled. That'll never happen. You weren't meant to fulfill life inside those walls. We are meant for community. When we cut others out of our life, which is what happened. When things get hard, you know what you do? You push all the other things out. You know what you can never afford to do? You can never push the other things out. I am so glad I have a responsibility. Because when things get tough, I want to push the things out. But I can't because I have a responsibility and something to do. By the way, there's a lesson in there. We should all have something to do. It shouldn't be so easy for us to push everything out. But what happens when we push it all out, we start to look for fulfillment inside of our little world. And it's never enough. I respect your home so much. You just can't imagine. I have to be careful talking about it because people are like, Ugh. 1 week here, 1 week involved in the school, and kids are running to you. I just wanted to kiss you on the cheek, but that felt weird, so I didn't do it. Well, I'm telling you, it's the truth. No one could respect your home. I just respect it so much. But this is a warning. Your home will not fulfill you. God has meant you for more. And as soon as it becomes the only thing that you have, depression and anger and frustration and doubt, welcome to Jacob's life. Which ends in, well, now I've seen you and I'm going to die. Jacob. Jacob chapter 47, verse 10, and this is a good place because I'm just going to get to start right here, which is where I want to next week. Doesn't work out that way very often. Jacob at 47:10, he blesses Pharaoh. Now in 47:10, he hadn't been 17 years with the beloved son. He's still all boo-hooing and depressed, which is why we said, how can a man who has so little and is full of regret bless someone? Because he's the one who knows God. Which is a picture, by the way, of Genesis chapter 22, where the promise is, I will bless you, and out of you, I'll bless all the nations. We get to see that fulfillment right there. If we know God, we are blessed. And no matter what grief or sorrow or pain or regret we're dealing with, we are able to speak the blessings of God to someone's life. And I'm also going to go one step further. While we're doing that, it has a wonderful way of healing ourselves. Genesis 49, Jacob blesses the sons. Although at first reading, it may not sound like much of a blessing. It is a great blessing, and there's much to learn, and that's where we're going to end up, hopefully, God willing, next week. Justin, will you close on a word of prayer this morning?